Dear students, good morning. We will continue part 2 of your textbook with Chapter 5. Chapter 5 will talk about small business, entrepreneurship and franchising. In Chapter 5, we look at the expanding world of small business, entrepreneurship and franchising. First, we define entrepreneurship and small business and examine the role of small business in the American economy. Then we explore the advantages and disadvantages of small business ownership and analyze why small business succeed or fail. Next, we discuss how an entrepreneur goes about starting a business and the challenges facing small business today. Finally, we look at the entrepreneurship in large organizations. Here are the learning objectives. After reading this chapter, supposedly you will be able to define entrepreneurship and small business. Let me open here the laser pointer. Yes. Learning objective number 1, define entrepreneurship and small business. Second, investigate the importance of small business in the U.S. economy and why certain fields attract small business. Then, we specify the advantages of small business ownerships. Then, we will summarize the advantages of small business ownership and analyze why many businesses fail. And finally, describe how you go about starting a small business and what resources are needed. First of all, we need to define the nature of entrepreneurship. If you remember, in Chapter 1, we defined an entrepreneur as a person who risks his or her wealth and effort to develop for profit an innovative product or way of doing something. Therefore, entrepreneurship is the process of the creating and managing a business to achieve desired objective. Many large businesses you may recognize like Levi's, Procter & Gamble, McDonald's, Dell Computers, Microsoft and Google all begin as small businesses based on visions of their founders. Some entrepreneurs who start small business have the ability to see emerging trends. In response, they create a company to provide products that serve customers' needs. The entrepreneur movement is accelerating and many new smaller businesses are emerging. Technology, once available only to the largest firms, can now be obtained by a small business. Websites, broadcasts, online videos, and even social media and cellular phones expedite delivery services enable small businesses to be more competitive with today's giant corporation. Another growing trend among small businesses is social entrepreneurship. What is social entrepreneurs? Social entrepreneurs are individuals who use entrepreneurship to address social problems. They cooperate by the same principles as other entrepreneurs, but view their organizations as a vehicle to create social changes. Although these entrepreneurs often start their own non-profit organizations, they can also operate for-profit organizations committed to solving social issues. Okay, what is a small business? You may ask yourself this question. The question is actually difficult to answer because the term small is relative. We define small business as any independently owned and operated business that is not dominant in its competitive area or industry group and employs less than 500 people. This definition is similar to the one used by Small Business Administration, the SBA. This is an independent agency of the federal government that offers managerial and financial assistance to the small business. On its website, the SBA outlines the first steps in starting a small business and offers a wealth of information to current and potential small business owners. We will consider the elements of this definition in greater detail as we continue our discussion in the next slides. Women and minority-owned businesses. Small businesses also provides opportunities for minority and women to succeed in business. For example, women own more than 9 million businesses nationwide with great success in professional services, retail, communication, and administrative service areas. Also, minority-owned businesses have been growing faster than other classifiable firms as well, representing about 28.6% of all small businesses. What is the relation between innovation and small business? The innovation of successful firms take many forms. For instance, small firms produce more than half of all innovations and make up approximately 2% of franchises. Many of today's largest businesses started off small business that used innovations to achieve success. Entrepreneurs provide fresh ideas and usually have greater flexibility to change than large firms. Here, Etsy is an e-commerce site that sells homemade and vintage items. The firm became publicly traded in 2015 and was valued over $3 billion. Small business ownerships. There are many advantages to establishing and running a small business. These can be categorized into personal advantages and business advantages. Some of the advantages include independence, requires less money to start and maintain, flexibility to adapt to changing market demands, develop inviolable reputation for quality and service. As with any undertaking, small business ownership has its disadvantages as well, which include high stress level, high failure rate, undercapitalization, managerial inexperience or incompetence, and inability to cope with growth. The list on this slide shows some of the traits that can help entrepreneurs succeed. Some of the very important traits like the entrepreneur must be intuitive, use his intuition to derive what's true without conscious reasoning. He must be productive. He must be resourceful, charismatic, innovative, even risk taker, having the ability to pursue risky endeavors despite the possibility of failure, persistent and friendly. These are many of the successful traits of young entrepreneurs. Advantages of independence. Independence is probably one of the leading reasons that entrepreneurs choose to go into business for themselves. Being a small owner means being to go into business for themselves. Being a a small business owner means being your own boss. Many people start their own business because they believe they will do better for themselves than they could do by remaining with their current employers or by changing jobs. More often, small business owners just want the freedom to choose whom they work with, the flexibility to pick where and when to work, and the option of working in a family setting. The availability of the computer, copy machine, fax, and internet has permitted many people to work at home. Small businesses often requires less money to start and maintain than do large ones. Obviously, a firm with just 25 people in a small factory spends less money on wages and salaries, rent, utilities, and other expenses than does a firm employing tens of thousands of people in a large facility. Rather than maintaining the expense of keeping separate departments for accounting, advertising, and legal counseling, small business often hire other firms, sometimes small business themselves, to supply these services as they are needed. Additionally, small business owners can sometimes rely on friends and family members to help them save money by volunteering to work on a difficult project. With a small size comes the flexibility. The flexibility to adapt to changing marketing demands. Small business usually have only one layer of management, which are the owners. Decisions therefore can be made and executed quickly. In larger firms, decisions about even routine matters can take weeks because they must pass through multiple levels of management before actions is authorized. Small firms can also focus their effort on precisely defined market niche, that is, a specific group of customers. Many large corporations must compete in the mass market or for large market segments. Smaller firms can develop products for particular groups of customers or to satisfy a need that other companies have not addressed. By targeting small niches or product needs, businesses can sometimes avoid competition from larger firms, helping them to grow into stronger companies. Finally, small firms, because of their capacity to focus on narrow niches, can develop inviolable reputation for quality and services. A small business is likely to provide a living for its owner, but not much more, although there are exceptions, and some examples in this chapter have shown. There are ongoing worries about competition, employee problems, new equipment, expanding inventory, rent increases, changing market demands, and many, many more. The small business person is often the owner, manager, sales force, shipping and receiving clerk, bookkeeping, and the custodian. He's doing everything. Having to multitask can result in long hours for most small business owners. Many creative persons fail not because of their business concepts, but rather because of the difficulties in management. Now we discuss the high failure rate. Despite the importance of small businesses to our economy, there is no guarantee of success. We have half of all new employer firms fail within the first 5 years. Restaurants are an example here. Look around your neighborhood, for example. You can probably spot the location of several restaurants that are no longer in business. We have three major causes of small business failure deserve a close look. We have the undercapitalization, the managerial inexperience or incompetence, and the inability to cope with growth. The shorter path to failure in business is undercapitalization. The lack of funds to operate a business normally. Too many entrepreneurs think that all they need is enough money to get started, that the business can survive on cash generated from sales soon thereafter. This is wrong. This is totally wrong. Almost all business suffer from seasonal variations in sales, which make cash very tight, and few businesses make money from the start. Without sufficient funds, the best small ideas in the world will definitely fail. Also, poor management is the cause of any business failures. Just because an entrepreneur has a brilliant vision for a small business doesn't mean he or she has knowledge or experience to manage growing business effectively. Moreover, entrepreneurs may neglect those areas of management they know little about or find tedious at the expense of the business success. Sometimes the very factors that are advantages for small business turned into serious disadvantage when the time comes to grow. Growth often requires the owner to give up a certain amount of direct authority, and it is frequently hard for someone who has called all the shots to give up control. It has often been said the greatest impediment to the success of business is the entrepreneur himself. Poorly managed growth probably affects the company reputation more than everything else, at least initially, and the products that doesn't arrive on time or goods that are poorly made can quickly reverse a success. You now know that small businesses are incredibly important to the sustainability of the overall economy. You know what the advantages and costs are related to starting a business, and you now know why some succeeded where others failed. You may be asking at this point, how do I start a small business? To begin, you must have a general idea of what you want to do. You must start with a concept or a general idea. Once you have the idea, you need to develop a strategy that guides the planning of the business and its development. This strategy provides the opportunity to make critical decisions about how to best proceed in terms of the form of ownership, how much money or capital you need to start, and whether you should start from scratch or acquire an existing business or buy a franchise. A key element of business success is a business plan. A precise statement of the rationale of the business and a step-by-step explanation of how it will achieve its goals. The business plan should include an explanation of the business and the analysis of the competition, estimates of income and expenses, and other information needed for this plan. It should also establish a strategy for acquiring sufficient funds to keep the business going. A good business plan should act as a guide and reference document, not that limits the business flexibility and decision-making ability. The business plan must revise periodically to ensure that the firm goals and strategy adapt to the changes in the environment. developing a business plan, the entrepreneur has to decide on the appropriate legal form of business ownership. We have taken these forms of ownership last chapter, if you remember. So he must decide whether it is best to operate as sole proprietorship, partnership, or corporation, and to examine the many factors that affect the decision. To make money from small business, the owner must first provide or obtain money, which is called capital, to get started and to keep it running smoothly. Often the small business owner has to put up a significant percentage of the necessary capital. Few new business owners have a large amount of their own capital and must look to other sources for additional financing. Small business owners often use debt financing from banks or the Small Business Administration (SBA) to start their own organization. The most important source of funds for any new business is the owner himself. Many owners include among their personal resources ownership of a home, the accumulated value in a life insurance policy, or a saving account. A new business owner may sell or borrow against value of such assets to obtain funds to operate a business. Additionally, the owner may bring useful personal assets such as a computer, a desk, or other furniture, a car, or a truck as a part of his ownership interest in the firm. Such financing is referred to equity financing. Because the owner uses real personal assets rather than borrowing funds from outside sources to get started in a business. Small businesses can also obtain equity financing by finding investors for their operations. They may sell stock in the business to family members, friends, employees, or even other investors. Another source of funds is debt financing. New businesses sometimes borrow more than half of their financial resources. Banks, in this case, are the main supplier of external financing to small businesses. On the federal level, the Small Business Administration, the SBA, offers financial assistance to qualifying business. They can also look to family and friends as a source for long-term loans or other assets for an ownership interest in the business. Anyone lending a friend or family member money for a venture should state the agreement clearly in writing before any money changes hands. Although entrepreneurs often start new small businesses from scratch, much the way we have discussed in this section, they may elect instead to buy an existing business. This has the advantage of providing a built-in network of customers, suppliers, and distributors, and reducing some of the guesswork inherent in starting a new business from the ground up. However, an entrepreneur who buys an existing business also takes on any problems the business already has. This is a dilemma here. Many small business owners find entry into the business world through franchising. The license to sell another product or to use another's name in business or both is a franchise. The company that sells a franchise is the franchisors, like Dunkin' Donuts, Subway. They are well-known franchisers with national visibility. The purchasers of a franchise is called a franchisee. The franchisee acquires the rights to a name, logo, methods of operation, national advertising, products, and other elements associated with the franchisor's business in return for a financial commitment and the agreement to conduct business in accordance with the franchisor's standards of operations. We have many advantages of franchising. The entrepreneur will find that franchising has both advantages and disadvantages. Franchising allows a franchisee the opportunity to set up a small business relatively quickly. And because of its association with its established brand, a franchise outlet often reaches the break-even point faster than any independent business world. Other advantages may include management training and support, the brand name appeal, the standardized quality of goods and services, national and local advertising programs, financial assessment, proven products formats, centralized buying powers, site selection and territorial protection, greater chance for success. However, the franchisee must sacrifice some freedom to the franchisor. Some shortcomings experienced by the franchisee include franchise fee and profit sharing with the franchisor, strict adherence to standardized operation, restrictions on purchasing, limited product line, possible market saturation, less freedom in business decisions. Strict uniformity is the rule rather than the exception. Entrepreneurs who want to be their own bosses are often frustrated with the restriction of a franchise. And now we've reached the end of this chapter. I hope you write down any question you have until we meet on our interactive meeting next week. Don't forget, I make an announcement for you. Please, if you have any question, let's meet next week. And I hope you listen to this lecture and write notes before we meet in case you have any inquiries or any question. Thank you very much for listening. Meet you soon. Bye.